Welcome to video number 12 in our deliverance seminar. And in this video, we're going to look at prayers of release. We're going to be, we've been taking you through the steps in the deliverance session and looking back at our template that is found on page 60 and 61. I want you to turn there and look at number 5 on page 60, and it is the 5th bullet point. It says prayers of release. That's where we are at. We have already, on number 5, we've already had the person prayer, the forgiveness prayer, soul type prayer, breaking generational curses, break all strongholds that are applicable. And now we are at the 5th bullet point, which is prayer of release. And when we have led people through these prayers of release, what it is they're being released from previous cults that they may have been involved in, or it may have been some, maybe it's paganism or any kind of attachment to any non-Christian religion. We want to pray that there is a complete severance. Any kind of attachment, it is completely broken off. We have had people that experienced healing, emotional as well as physical healings that have taken place as they were praying these prayers of release. We had one person that was involved in the Ku Klux, he wasn't, but his ancestor was involved in the Ku Klux Klan, heavily involved in it. And when he went through this prayer of release from the attachment of his ancestors from that white supremacy group, he just felt a whole bunch of stuff just lifted right off of him. So it was some kind of a generational consequence that had kept him in bondage, and he was totally unaware that it was there. There's other people that had immediate freedom. There was releases that had taken place by praying these prayers of release. So if you would turn to page 84 in your manual, what we see is that the first one there is the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is also the Mormons. So if you go through your questionnaire when you're in the second interview with a person, if you see that they or their ancestors were involved in the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you'll want them to pray this prayer of release. And then on page 85, Jehovah's Witness, which is the Watchtower Society of the Jehovah's Witnesses, if they or any of their ancestors were involved in it, we want them to pray that prayer. Going to page 86, a prayer of release for Roman Catholics. I know that in the United States, many Protestants have look at Roman Catholics today as identical to Protestants, but there's a reason why we call ourselves Protestants, and that's because we protest against Roman Catholicism. And there's some very significant things and differences in these two categories. And so if a person was formerly a Roman Catholic, we want to ask them to pray through this prayer of release to be separated from any kind of attachments of praying to the dead, because that's many Roman Catholics pray to the dead. They trust in amulets, they trust in charms to protect them, and they're not looking solely to Jesus Christ. And so that is what the prayer of release for Roman Catholicism is all about. Also, on page 87, we have the prayer release from Freemasonry. I know also that there's many people that believe there's nothing wrong with Freemasonry. And but what we have found is that there's some very demonic attachments to it. And when people pray this, we have seen some people that resign from leadership in the lodges, whether it was the Eastern Star, which is the women's group, or whether it was another lodge, a leader of that group. We've seen them be released, and also the demons left them when they prayed that prayer. They came back and they said, well, they just made this confession. They made the confession publicly that they were totally set free. They saw the demons leave them. So when they prayed this prayer of release from Freemasonry. Also this, on page 88, there's a prayer to break the curse of illegitimacy. Let me read on Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 2. It says, one of illegitimate birth shall not enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord. So in the Old Testament, if somebody was born outside of marriage, they were forbidden from being able to go into the temple. There was a block there. Worship was hindered. And what we have found is that there's a lot of people today that were born outside of wedlock. And I'm not saying all of them, but there's a considerable number of them that are being blocked, and they're being able to relate appropriately and freely with the Lord in worship. We have seen one person that once they prayed this prayer, they were able to freely worship. Like they specifically said that there was this hindrance. Every time they would come into the sanctuary, there was this hindrance, and they couldn't worship. There was this block, and they didn't know what it was. But after they prayed the prayer to break the curse of illegitimacy, that block left, and they could enter in freely with the rest of the body of Christ, freely worshiping the Lord. So these have real power. Even though there's no manifestation that might take place, there's still a power that takes place. The power of Jesus Christ comes and sets people free. Now, we only listed Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witness, Roman Catholicism, Freemasonry, and breaking the curse of illegitimacy. There's an endless list of non-Christian religions and cults, animism, and so you could make a whole big workbook full of prayers. But we didn't do that. We just selected some of the main ones to include in this manual. You're going to encounter people in cults that are not in this manual, and I have encountered them. One was in the cult called the House of Yahweh, and what I did, I just assembled, very simply, I assembled a simple prayer. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It doesn't have to be in detail. All it does is just say, I separate myself from this cult. All their teachings are wrong. I disagree with them. I am free from them. I believe that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through him. That's simple. That's all that needs to be said. So if you encounter a person and you find out through the questionnaire that they may have an involvement in any type of cult or animism or New Age practices, all you have to do is simply write up something and have them pray that prayer when you get to this place of having the person pray a prayer of release, and it's done. So this is the end of video number 12, and then the next video we're going to discuss inner healing. And it's often during this time of praying for inner healing that something that we call abreactions occur. That is, when the individual reverts back to childhood or even an infant stage. And it's also common for people to experience visions during inner healing. Like I said earlier, many people don't have demons, but they have a lot of inner wounds and emotional turmoil that they need healing from. And so this step of inner healing is what almost everybody vitally needs. And so we're going to be looking at that in our next video.